Hi, I'm Marissa Lute. I'm the editor of the Viewpoint, and I'm a fifth-generation journalist. I'm sitting here with Duane Weber, who happens to be my grandfather, and he is the former editor and publisher of the Osmond Republican. Thank you for joining us.
It's good to be here.
At the end of February this year, the Osmond Republican published their last paper out of their original building. How do you feel about that?
Well, it brings back a lot of memories. We did a lot of work in that building, and the paper had been in there since 1941, I think, when your great-grandfather moved the business over there. But yeah, but they don't need that large a building any longer, since the newspaper business and the typesetting and everything is so much different than it was back in those days when we had presses and linotypes and things like that.
You had an interesting career long before you becoming a journalist. Can you tell us a little more about that?
Oh, my career kind of happened accidentally, I think, throughout the years. I grew up on the farm by Plainview, Nebraska. I got my draft notice during the Berlin build-up in 1962, and I volunteered for service, volunteered for the Army to go before the draft so I could get into something other than infantry. And then it just kind of went from there. I went into the Army, and I ended up spending 8 years in the Army. After my basic training, I went I was a clerk typist, and then I was assigned to a criminal investigation division unit, which was a small unit, and I got interested in investigations, and I started working as an investigator. I went to school as a criminal investigator at Fort Gordon, Georgia, and then I went to Hawaii, and then I went to Vietnam, and I came back to the D.C. area again.
What career choices made you ready and motivated to become the editor and publisher of the Osmond Republican?
I think as being an investigator, I mean, I did a lot of writing, I did a lot of investigating, investigative type, same kind of thing you do as a reporter, if you're going to be an investigative reporter or something like that. Or but you're just finding out the facts, and I always had to write lengthy reports on those. And then we were living in the D.C. area, and I'd left the Army at that time, and I was working for the Bureau of Engraving and Printing and driving like 60 miles one way to work and traffic and everything, and I just decided that I didn't really want to be in the city. I didn't really want to raise my children in the city, and your great-grandfather sent us a letter and said that he was going to sell the newspaper, and I thought I could handle it. So we bought it, much to the chagrin of your grandmother, because she grew up in that. But anyway, we moved back there, and when we moved back, the newspaper was still letterpress, hot metal, where you had linotypes and you set slugs and organized it in trays, and you printed it on an old flatbed press with a sheet fed. And then we changed it over to cold type, or that was the beginning of the computer age. We had CompuGraphics at first, which were the first ones. Well, Justotype some of them had, but CompuGraphics was one of the early newspaper setting things, which was a photographic type thing, and it had all the fonts were on a negative, and it shot it onto a photo paper that you had to process through a photo processor.
You were self-taught. How did you learn all of that on your own?
A lot of trial and error, particularly when it was linotype. The hot metal, because the linotype is a very intricate machine. If you've never seen one run, it's really interesting because it had all these little matrices with the letters on. It had to go through the different channels and different elevators, and then it shot hot metal in the back of that and made a slug out of it, and everything had to work just so, or you get a hot metal squirt and come out and hit you. And the metal was 550 degrees at that time, So that was the biggest challenge, I think, was learning that and learning how to keep the machinery up. But I always liked mechanics and machinery, so it worked out well.
What was it like to be a journalist back then?
Well, we bought the paper in 1974, so like I say, it was hot metal. That was a lot different. There was a lot more hours put in. But basically you were still covering everything in a small town, and I always considered the newspapers kind of the heartbeat of the small towns if you're gonna really represent your community. And I don't know that should have changed. I don't know, maybe it has changed. I haven't been around it for a number of years now, but I still think that is the requirement, to support your town and to present the news and activities. And
Where did the light tables come into play, or when?
I built the light tables when we went offset, when we went to the cold type with the copy graphics, and we made up pages. You had layout pages, and they set up on those light tables. And you had the strips that I said that you ran through the printed on the copy graphic, and it was processed through a photographic processor. And it came out in a long strip, and then you trimmed it off, and you laid it out on these columns. The makeup pages were laid out in columns, and you made up your pages that way.
How did you stay current in the ever-changing newspaper industry?
Well, it just kind of happened, because to keep current or to stay in the industry, you kind of had to keep up with the machines and the different types of equipment. And now that I've been at it for more than 20 years, it's altogether different. The things that you folks do from what I did is altogether different. I know they were just starting pagination when I quit. We didn't get into it at all. We still did the layout pages and everything else, but the industry has changed so much now that I'm not sure I could go back into it. I might do the reporting, but I couldn't do the physical work.
What other newspapers did you run while running the Osmond Republican?
We had the Osmond Republican, the Randolph Times, and the Laurel Advocate, and we put in our own. We were probably the smallest newspaper that had its own press. We had a Goss 2-unit press to print our papers in, and you couldn't do that for one paper, but for the 3 papers it worked well. And we used to do a lot of commercial work too, so.
Is it hard to juggle all of the different events in each town and stuff like that?
It was, yeah. It takes a lot of hours, a lot of meetings, a lot of nights.
What made you sell the newspaper in 1996?
A fella came along and wanted to buy 2 of them, and I said you couldn't buy 2, but you could buy 3. So he had the money, and that was that. You don't get that opportunity in small towns every day to get out of a business like that.
In the age of the internet, how has journalism changed?
Oh, it really has changed. I mean, with the internet and social media now, that it's just about. We used to rely a lot on classified ads and that type of thing for revenue. That isn't there anymore because of Craigslist and that kind of thing. The younger people probably don't read the newspapers like I do. I still like my newspaper every morning, and the younger people, they go to the internet and pick up their news that way. So it's a real challenge for the people running a small town newspaper now, because there just it's not the same situation as it was when I was in business. And that was one of the reasons I was happy to sell too, because I could see it coming. Yeah.
Did you like your job as a journalist?
I did. I thought it was worthwhile. I remember my father-in-law, when I took it over, he told me, he said, there'll be very few bouquets, but you don't get a lot of credit or a lot of bouquets, but if you get if you do a good job, you feel good about it. And he was a good journalist too, so. Or a good journalist. I don't know about 2.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and telling us all about the newspaper and journalism history.
You're welcome.
And thank you for joining us.